All right, folks, welcome back to the channel. You found us here at KGB Customs, home of what we believe is some of the best custom gun content on the web. We share these custom guns in hopes of sharing some knowledge and to catalog some of the great pieces that come through our shop. Thanks for joining us. Today we've got a great Combat Commander build by Frank Glenn out of Phoenix, Arizona. If you guys aren't already, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to the channel. If you really like the things we present here, jump down to the link in the description and join our email list. It's not a spam list. We're not going to bother you daily. We just let you know when new stuff hits our site. Thanks for tuning in. Like I said, Frank Glenn, Phoenix, Arizona. Old school pistolsmith. Been in the business over 50 years. I believe he opened his shop in 73. To my knowledge, he's been a one-man show most of that time. He was at one time associated with a shop by the name of Accuracy Unlimited, I believe. I don't really have a clear picture of what that looked like. If he was just subbing, if they were subbing work to him or vice versa. Nonetheless, he's just Glenn Custom now, and he's still in business in Phoenix, Arizona, still handles jobs for guys. I'm sure he's slowed down some in that time, but he's still often touted as the go-to guy for Colt Python and Python derivatives for the tuning and timing of those guns, like the Colt Python, and then we go back to the officer's model MASH, official police, the Army Special, and even the new service. I do believe he works on a new service as well. He did a lot of work on 1911s, though. This is one of them. This is a 1975 Colt Combat Commander, so all steel Commander in 38 Super, which is a rad caliber. Certainly my favorite caliber to put in a Commander. If I got to build a guy a Commander, I'd prefer it to be a 38 Super. We can go into the where and why of that maybe at a later date, but this gun was likely built in the 90s. I say that based on a few things, the parts involved and the overall look of it. The gun has a Ed Brown with memory groove beaver tail, so that dates it a little bit. Looks to be an Ed Brown ambidextrous safety. The MMC Micro Machine Company adjustable rear sight in a Novak low mount dovetail. So the Novak low mount dovetail certainly dates it. We've got a Novak front sight. The Micro Machine Company used to build and maybe they still do, I think their website's still active. They used to build a little adjustable sight that went into the GI dovetail. It was a terrible adjustable sight, but it was an improvement in sight picture over the OEM sight. So you'll see a fair number of old Colts that have this little oddball sight in the original sight cut. And sometimes they'll have and I think this has to do with how the dovetail was cut and the variations therein, but sometimes you'll see a little flat cut underneath that sight on the slide. So be careful. Sometimes you can swap those back to factory. Sometimes you're going to have a flat there. But if you're upgrading it to a Heine or a Novak or a Bomar, none of that matters because that's all going to get milled off anyway. Frank Glenn, to my knowledge, has operated out of the Phoenix area his entire career, all 50 years. He's pretty well known to locals, maybe a little less so nationwide, but he built guns for some of the biggest names in the gun industry in the 80s and 90s, and guys that could build their own guns if they cared to. That really speaks to me, I guess, the desire guys had for Frank's work, even though they could build a pretty darn good gun themselves. We're talking about guys like Rob Latham, who's won more trophies shooting a gun than anyone, I believe. Brian Enos, who is big in the USPSA world and certainly a guy who could probably build his own gun if he really wanted to. Bill Wilson, famous Wilson Combat, Bill Wilson built, plenty of guns and had a dozen gunsmiths working for him by the time the 90s came around. Mike Plaxco, also an accomplished builder, and a very accomplished competitor. So Frank was well regarded, certainly in the Arizona area. We'll go over this gun's feature set here. We've got a Barstow match barrel, hard fit, ramped, with a Barstow match bushing on the front there. And when I say, hard fit, it still snicks in and out of battery and is very tight. We've got a 3-hole trigger there. A nice kiss to that is we've got the holes chamfered. That's just a cute touch. 30 LPI, perfect checkering on the front and the back. Like I said, those brown safeties. We've got bar stock internals. We'll drop this hammer a couple times. That trigger is probably 3 pounds. Frame to slide has been tightened on this gun, so it is, it's crossing that threshold to what I would call a full build. We've accurized it both in barrel and in frame to slide fit. We've replaced internals as needed with higher quality internals. We've upgraded the safeties. We've upgraded the sights. We've textured the frame. That pretty much makes it a full house build to my eye. Are there things this pistol doesn't have that a lot of pistolsmiths put on guns? Certainly. It doesn't have any really decorative BS on the slide. No flat top, no French border, no machine carry bevel on the bottom. Though the gun is beautifully hand carry bevel. The nose of this slide has a pretty extreme bevel on it, as a matter of fact, which would make that slide into a holster without any resistance. We'll slide a picture in here of that carry bevel and Frank's marking here on the slide. But the gun remains incredibly tight, incredibly smooth, and has a great trigger. It's just a classic carry gun. There's nothing really to complain about. I would probably ditch this old MMC rear sight. I understand why guys want them. They want the ability to adjust their sights. In a carry gun, I'm going to zero that for my carry load, and then I'm going to try to load a practice load that I can shoot outside of that carry ammo. A practice load that hits to the same point that the carry load does. So I'm never going to adjust those sights, is what I'm trying to say. I would probably swap that out with a Novak fixed rear, but that's a simple job for somebody who wants to do that. But a lot of guys still like the adjustability in the rear, and Novak's making an adjustable rear now nowadays. It has for a while now, but when this gun was built, my guess is Wayne wasn't making his adjustable low mount rear yet. So I suppose that's about it. Frank is probably more talked about for his revolver work than his 1911 work these days. And I think that's part and parcel to the fact that he's one of a few revolver smiths left operating. There's lots of guys out there who work on a 1911, and Frank still will as well. But guys who will tune and can tune a Python, well, that's a pretty short list, with Frank right at the top. So if you need that kind of work, Frank's still your guy. And tip him, because for Pete's sake, he's put 50 years into learning his craft. Whatever pittance he's going to charge you for tuning your Python when there's nobody else to do it is worth a little extra coin. I appreciate you guys tuning in and continuing to come back video after video. It's been a lot of fun, and we're going to continue recording custom guns until they stop showing up. Like I said, if you guys really like this kind of stuff, jump down to the link in the description. You'll see a place there to sign up for our email list. That'll get you first notice of new stuff here. These videos don't always go up before these guns have found a new home. So I appreciate you tuning in.